It's a News Watch. Is it bias or plain ignorance? You be the judge. One of the speakers who'll be at the Republican convention this week to back Donald Trump is a teenager. We've talked about him before. His name is Nick SANDMANN. He goes to a high school in Covington. The news that this boy was going to speak had the gang at Channel 10's The Project, which is a leftist collective, trashing this boy as a nut job who mocked an innocent Native American.
And then next week, the Republican National Convention is happening, and they have these guys. That's Covington Catholic High School student Nicholas SANDMANN, who mocked a Native American elder taking part in a march. Wow. And the other two, a gun-toting Missouri couple, Patricia and Mark McCloskey.
The Republican Convention is starting to look like an episode of 20 to 1. 2020's biggest nut jobs. That's incredible.
To be fair, though, I'm more likely to do what the guys on the right with the guns tell me to do.
Yeah.
Ho, ho, ho. And over at the ABC, our supposedly impartial national broadcaster, Washington correspondent David Lipson, accused SANDMANN, along the same lines, of being a MAGA hat-wearing teenager, Make Australia Great Again, Donald Trump's slogan, who stared down a Native American protester, which is false. In fact, SANDMANN had, well, so far reached two nice settlements with big media outlets, which also claimed, like these couple of, well, I was going to say a bad word, that he and his schoolmates had bullied or intimidated an American Indian at a protest and that the boy was a racist. SANDMANN said on his 18th birthday, in fact, he's settled his $250 million defamation claim with the Washington Post, which had said exactly that, because the truth is that SANDMANN is not a racist, he's the victim of one of the worst media pylons I've ever seen. The truth is that SANDMANN and his mates were actually the victims of racists themselves, of black homophobic activists who abused them at that scenario you saw and also taunted one of the boys who was black.
A damn
That's right.
Yeah, you's a cracker.
A bunch of babies made out of insects.
When you get old enough, they're gonna steal your organs.
Whoa, hey, we love you, bro. Hey, we love you, kid.
Choose, give its rights.
So the boys were getting abused. Then this Native American that SANDMANN allegedly taunted, he turns up. He confronts the boys. He confronts them. It's not vice versa. He walks up to them with his drum and bangs it in the face of SANDMANN, who didn't know what he was supposed to do, so just smiled. Joining me is Gerard Henderson, head of the Sydney Institute, columnist with the Australian newspaper, and author of the Media Watchdog blog, out every Friday. I never miss it. Gerard Henderson, what did you make of Channel 10's current affairs show, an ABC foreign correspondent in Washington, both still claiming that Nicholas SANDMANN, a mere teenager, he was the bully and even a nut job?
Well, there's another media pylon. It's done essentially with sneers, and it's based on ignorance. I told the ABC, I told Michael Rowland, who was running this in January last year, so a year and a half ago, I told the ABC this was completely wrong. They just dismissed it, and they're still running this line. David Lipson, who should know better, is running it, and their ideological mates across at 10 and the Project are running it. I mean, as you know, you showed in your footage there, the young man was approached by an Indian Native Indian American, who banged a drum in his face. He held his ground. Nicholas SANDMANN held his ground. That was the right thing to do. So the idea that somehow he's a racist or he was aggressive, he wasn't. And the real point is, people should know this. The ABC head of news and current affairs should know this, should stop this being broadcast, because it's wrong. Walid Ali, he's an academic lecturer at Monash University. He's got programs on the ABC. He doesn't know this. This is a manifestation of ignorance motivated by ideology. Because you don't like the guy, you're going to pile into him and don't worry about the facts. And I just think this is grossly unprofessional journalism. And I can understand someone making a mistake a year and a half ago, but the ABC and the Project are still making the mistake when even the Washington Post has settled on this, because the Washington Post and CNN know they got this wrong.
Well, you're very generous, but you've often been known to be too generous, Gerard. I've often accused you of this on the show. You say it may just be mere ignorance. But the point is, of course, that it was debunked at the time, on this show a couple of times, elsewhere it was debunked. He got apologies from some groups. He started suing something like 6 media outlets, the biggest in the world. He's got settlements so far from 2. And somehow, we're supposed to believe that Walid Ali, who takes an interest in racial tensions and wars and current events and American politics, and David Lipson's actually in Washington reporting on politics, that they never actually ever heard of this. We're supposed to believe this. They know his name, but they don't know, in fact, that he was the victim of racism, not the perpetrator of it. How you say it's ignorance? I'm not so sure.
Well, I'm a courteous kind of guy, and I'm sort of happy to acknowledge this. But to some extent, I think ignorance is worse, because people like Walid Ali and Lipson should know this. So ignorance, in a sense, is worse to me, but it might be deliberate, but I doubt it. It's just that they don't care about the facts because they're so prejudiced against people that the prejudice overrides the facts.
They don't care about the facts. I think that is exactly where you are. It's the narrative that counts, not the facts. We're all talking narratives now, you know. It's your side, not the principle. I wonder, Gerard, whether the ABC's North American Bureau has ever been so biased and so partisan. I think every single one of them, even James Glendale, I really thought showed real promise early on. But here is perhaps the most biased of the ABC's team over there, Catherine Diss, praising the Democrat convention yet again, abusing the president as well. It's cartoonish. It's good lefties and bad, evil right-wing baddies. Here she is.
In a 20-minute speech, former President Barack Obama delivered a poignant message.
This administration has shown it will tear our democracy down if that's what it takes for them to win.
And in a further sign of what lengths he'll go to win, Donald Trump embraced support from fringe conspiracy movement QAnon, a group which has been labelled a domestic terrorism threat by the FBI.
I've heard these are people that love our country. They do supposedly like me.
The US president has continued to break with decorum, campaigning during the Democratic convention. Today, he raised a fuss over a major employer in a swing state banning all political slogans, including his campaign catchphrase.
There's something wrong with the top of Goodyear, and what the radical left does is they make it impossible for people to do business if they're Republican or if they're conservative.
Can you decode all that for us in 20 seconds, Gerard?
Well, it's just barracking. It's not reporting. It's just anti-Trump barracking. A report on the Democratic convention has more criticism of the Republicans than it doesn't tell us anything about the Democrats' policies, the Democratic Party's policies. What I'd do is, if I was at the ABC, bring the trio home and just take a feed from anti-Trump stations like CNN or MSNBC, and you save a lot of money and you get the same anti-Trump propaganda for no money at all. That's my solution. I'm trying to be helpful.
Well, very helpful. And also, you're saving us a lot of money, Gerard Henderson. Thank you so much indeed for your time.